Hello everyone, my name is Shi, currently a Year 1 student in University of Malaya. So today I'll be sharing a bit of my experience about the interview tips for Law School. Because many people have been messaging me and asked about the interview tips, and I think it would be better if I share it online here so that more can benefit from it. So firstly, congratulations for securing an interview, which means that you're one step closer to your dream school in Yep. And before I start, just want to say that this is merely my personal experience, and the interview for different individual might vary according to lecture and which year are you in and stuff. So I'll be touching on three parts mainly. The first part is the setting of the interview. The second part is the 3 minutes lawyer, and the last one is the general question. So for the setting, it will be an individual interview where there will be 2 interviewees consisting of the lecturers in the university. And for last year where it was virtual, there will be 1 registrar as well and interviewee, that is you. And we used Google Meet to carry out the interview last year. And the structure is there will be part 1, 3 minutes lawyer, and part 2, which is the normal interview. So going to the first part, which is the 3 minutes lawyer, many had been curious on what is this actually, because they didn't really specify on how you should do it and how it will be carried out. So 3 minutes lawyer is basically a scenario or a problem question that they will give you, and you'll be required to give advice to the party involved. Like for instance, they ask you to be the lawyer for person A, then you need to argue on behalf of your client. And so the preparation time, they will release the question or the scenario when the person before you is called for the interview. So that means you will have 10 to 15 minutes of preparation time, and you need to draft down all your arguments and what you have to say. Normally it will be within 3 minutes. So after presenting what you have to say, the interviewer might ask some follow-up question, or they'll straight go into the general interview part. And then before that, there is no legal knowledge required, because many students are from matrix, SPM and others where they do not have a legal background. So no worries, you have to give advice based on common sense or what you think that is a valid argument. Here I'll give an example of a scenario. For instance, person A is walking on the street, and beside it is a construction site. And suddenly, when person A is walking, a brick falls down from the construction site and hit person A. Person A was injured. As a lawyer of person A, how would you defend your client? That is a hypothetical scenario that you may get. So you need to think on how can you argue, how can you help your client to claim for whether compensation, or you want to sue the construction site and stuff. So firstly, a very important legal terminology is you need to know that the person suing is the plaintiff, and the person being sued is the defendant. This is the most basic thing that you need to know. So you have to know whether you are representing the plaintiff or the defendant. And for plaintiff, you need to put forward arguments to establish your claim. Why the court should allow this claim, how the plaintiff can successfully sue the defendant. And as a lawyer for defendant, you need to put forward argument to defend your client, which means that firstly, you can put forward argument to reason to support why your client is not liable, and secondly, you can rebut the claim for the plaintiff. But in this case, like it's similar lah, but you need to know what is a plaintiff, what is a defendant. Okay, so this one passed. Back to the question, if you are person A's lawyer, you are the plaintiff. Okay, so I need to think about the reasons, the argument. So an example of how you can present is, firstly, you can say that since like the brick falls from the construction site, it is foreseeable because construction site will normally have like a lot of dangerous stuff, and the possibility of a brick falling in the street is reasonable because it is just right beside the construction site. And since the possibility is high, we say that the defendant is, we argue that the defendant is liable. And before that, you need to say who is the defendant. The defendant might be like who you want to sue. Is it the construction site worker or is it the employer? Yeah, those is the things that you have to define before that. And let's say the first reason is there might be a possibility, and the second reason is it depends. Yeah, this is a strong word, and you may say it depends on whether the defendant had taken any precaution. If the defendant did not have like any fence surrounding the construction site, he might have like a higher possibility of being liable because construction site is dangerous stuff, so he must take extra precaution. And thirdly, it depends on the surrounding circumstances, whether it is a busy road or like a road with a few people passing by. If it's a busy one, then you can say for public interest or for the interest of like the public, then we submit that the defendant should be liable because the road is a busy one, and if the defendant did not take sufficient care, many people will be hurt because the road has many people. Alright, so like basically like that lah, you can just submit some, just put forward some reasons, some valid reasons to support your claim. And the conclusion, you can say, therefore, we, as the lawyer for the plaintiff, we want to, what you want, the defendant should be liable and to get compensation, like, and the defendant should pay compensation or damages to the plaintiff. Yeah. So that is an example of how you can do it. This might not be 100% correct lah. It's just like a sharing of experience on, in case that you do not know how this works, and this is a sample for you, right? And then to the next part, yeah, after finish the 3 minutes lawyer thing, it will be like the general interview. And the question will depend highly on who is your interviewer. So be prepared those basic questions, like tell me about yourself, why you am, why law, like these are basic questions. So you can Google and see, just prepare yourself like as much question as you can ask. And then the last tip before the video ends is, I've heard that some interviewer might require you to answer in bilingual, so you might have to prepare your answer in both language or to ensure that you can answer in BM. Next one is to show your passion. Why should they choose you? What is like the real reason that you want to enter? Try to make it more passionate, enthusiastic, because like many people are competing for the limited space in UM, and they do not want to waste that space to like give it to someone who doesn't really sure what they want to do, doesn't really sure why they want to enter UM. Yeah, you need to know why you want this spot, why should they choose you, this kind of question. You need to try to persuade them, and with this, you must have that kind of self-confidence that you can compete with others all around the world in order to, not around the world, all around like the country, Malaysia, to enter UM. I would say the interview is not as challenging as is not difficult as you might think of. Just be confidence in yourself and belief in yourself. And I'm sure that anyone can do it. Yeah. And one last tip is I intended to interview at first. To interview, to be honest. So the first one is UPU, where I failed, and the second one is the direct intake, the unsaid one. So the first one, I'll analyze the reason why I failed, just to share with you all. Because in the 3 Minutes Lawyer, I used some legal terminology to answer that question, and the interviewer just went straight into that point and asked me questions like really detailed about it. They expect you, since you mentioned this term, like this particular term, you should know what's the meaning of it and what's like the legal reasoning behind it and stuff. So I would advise, if you are not so sure, try not to mention the term, because I know that you will did like research a few days before and you might say, oh, this part of the legal stuff I found might suit the question, so you're trying to incorporate that. But if you're not so sure, just like go with your normal argument. That's the lesson I learned lah. Yeah. And then lastly, if you failed the first interview, do not worry, because you still have the second chance of doing so, like what I shared in my first video. If you haven't watched it, just to be well prepared and be confident in yourself, and I hope to see you in UM soon. Thank you.